New Year's Eve is fast approaching and restaurants are filling up fast. The big Eat Out magazine compiling a list of restaurants that are offering meals to help you see out the new year in style. So we're going to talk a little bit about that with Marble Restaurant's Dino Constantinou. Dino, a very warm welcome to you. I'm wondering if we're not jumping the gun slightly. Aren't people thinking about the Christmas meal, and here we are already talking about New Year's Eve?
Well, that's the thing, you know, you need to plan for New Year's quite far in advance these days, and especially here in Joburg, Marble and Saint, our sister restaurant, have already almost practically filled up. So if you're thinking of doing something on that night, I think now's the time to act on that.
What makes a great New Year's meal?
I think, you know, the meal part is one part of it, but I think people are
It's an occasion, it's, yeah.
Absolutely. They're looking for an experience and a night out. I don't think anyone's going out for New Year's Eve just to eat a quick meal and leave. So what we're doing at both Marble and Saint, we've included a little bit of an entertainment element. Marble particularly, we've been lucky enough to team up with our neighbours across the road, Kaya FM, and we bring in a little bit of an obrigado, Brazilian type entertainment to the night. So it starts off with the meal and then leads on into our bar space where there's some really cool entertainment.
Dino, let's cut to the chase.
Yes.
What have you brought there?
So this dish, which our chef Damien has prepared for us here, is from our sister.
Why are we keeping Damien in the wings there?
I think he should come and get a bit of credit for it. Yeah.
Okay. Damien, you can wander in if you want to, but we haven't mic'd you up, but don't worry too much about it. Just come and
So this dish is from Saint.
You were going to take all the credit for this.
I cooked it in the back really quick.
Okay. Just squat down a little bit, Damien. There we go.
There we go, Damien. Thanks. So this is from Saint Restaurant.
Yeah.
This is our crayfish pasta. It's an off-the-menu item. It's crayfish with tagliatelle, which we prefer. We prepare the pasta fresh every day. It's topped with some lumpfish caviar and some prawn crisps. It's absolutely delicious. Probably one of our most popular dishes at the moment. I think I might eat it afterwards.
I was going to say, you're going to have to get ahead of me. I want to reference Eat Out, which you guys feature in. Sure. And one of the things that interested me was some of the trends that are starting to emerge come 2020. So let me... if you're uncomfortable, you can go if you want. I just wanted to show people what the chef looked like. It was important. Let's talk about a couple of the trends. One of the big things is pairings are becoming a lot more popular in food. They're becoming more interesting. What do we mean by pairings, and why is that sort of shot to the top again?
No, absolutely. So, I mean, pairings can be several different things. When we speak of pairings at our restaurants and restaurants in general, one of the main things is pairings with wine. I think people always enjoy a beautiful glass of wine with a meal. And, you know, having a great wine selection and the right sommelier team to pair the dishes correctly is fundamental these days.
What's the skill in that? How do you do that?
Oh, it's absolutely far beyond my knowledge. You know, we've got a great team.
Suffice it to say, you don't make it up. It's, I mean, a lot of thought goes into something
absolutely.
Like this,
yeah. So, you know, the sommelier team can take various elements on a certain dish, you know, whether it's red meat or fish or a certain ingredient, and pair it almost perfectly with a glass of white or red wine or bubbles, whatever the case may be, and they just complement each other so well that it really it heartens that meal so much more if it's paired correctly.
Do you know, shame on you, because you're talking about wine, and what am I seeing there? 2 empty glasses.
I thought it was a bit early to be drinking.
It is a little bit early, and I would probably lose my job if I opened a bottle of wine with you. Something else which is interesting in this book is it's a good time these days to be a vegan or vegetarian. Remember those days where, you know, you would go to a restaurant, you'd look for the vegetarian option, and then, you know, a bit of pumpkin and gem squash and maybe a little bit of cheese over it. Things have really changed now, haven't they?
Absolutely. I mean, I've noticed a massive shift in the trend. I'd say a good portion of the patrons that we serve these days are coming in as vegetarians or vegans, and it's important for a restaurant to now cater for them. You know, it's a large portion of the clientele. So we've, at both our restaurants, tried our best to cater for them. And me, as a meat eater, I'm actually really surprised. You know, you'd have a beautiful vegan dish, and it's delicious.
It's better sometimes,
it is
man.
Better.
Really, and then you find yourself leaning across and taking the other person's vegetarian or vegan
option. Absolutely a big shift in that direction.
Yeah.
I think as people are becoming more conscious, and with the environment and meat eating, it's definitely shifted to that quite a lot.
Having said that, though, this Eat Out annual also points to beef making a comeback. But it's become, there are so many more different ways of preparing it, of pairing it as well, I guess.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought beef up. Marble is primarily a beef eating restaurant. We cook on beautiful open fire, and our meat is what people generally come from. And what we've done of recent times is we've brought in some amazing cuts of meat for the South African market to taste some of the best meat out there in the world. So
different cuts?
Absolutely.
Such as what?
So we've obviously got our local cuts. I mean, South Africa's got great meat, but now we've started bringing in some great meat from the USA. We've got tomahawk steaks, ribeye fillet.
Don't go so fast, Duncan. What's a tomahawk steak?
So basically the tomahawk, ours in particular, it's a 1.2 kilogram piece of meat. It's on the bone. We cook it in a Josper oven, so it's cooked on coals, but it's in an oven type device, so it's cooked all around. It's absolutely delicious. I've seen one person finish that piece of meat on his own, basically, and it's a big piece of meat. Delicious, tender, the marbling is fantastic, and that's the kind of stuff you get when you bring it in from the US.
One guy, 1.2 kilograms of meat in one sitting.
I think I've seen a lady do it as well.
Oh, man, that's a lot of meat. It really is. It is. Don't go, because we're going to bring Adelle Horler in, who's the editor-in-chief at Eat Out and Food 24. I have to tell you, this is killing me, by the way, because it really smells so good, doesn't it?
It does.
Adelle, good morning to you. Are you able to hear us now? We were having a little bit of difficulty in connecting with you. There you are. So I wanted to talk to you about some of the trends in 2020. Yes. The two of us have already referenced interesting pairings. We've spoken about beef making a comeback. You're going to tell us the tasting menus these days, or come 2020, are a lot lighter. What do we mean by that?
Well, I'd actually like to touch on a bit more sustainability that you were talking about earlier. But the tasting menus first. This was a report from Margot Janse, who's our chief judge, judges the restaurant awards. And she found that the tasting menus, there's still a lot of them, especially obviously in the fine dining, the more fine dining restaurants. But she's finding that they're using less fat, less butter, less cream, so that you don't get to the end of a 10, 11, 12 course meal and feel like you just want to fall over. The way she put it was that you want to have one more bite, which is a much better way to leave a meal than I actually want to.
Yeah. You don't want to feel like you've just nailed a tomahawk steak in one sitting. Yeah.
Yes, you don't want to feel like that. Well, I wouldn't.
Yeah. All right, back to the sustainability.
If I could just touch on some more... So we're seeing so many more vegetarian and vegans opening, that are purely vegetarian or vegan, and that's a movement that seems to be growing and growing and growing. And as you said earlier, a lot of the menus, the restaurants, especially if you give them notice, they're so much more accommodating of different dietary requirements. But the interesting thing is, even Spur has developed a plant-based menu. So it's a lovely movement that's growing. It's not. I'm actually a vegetarian, and it's just easier to be that. For example, Radisson Red, another good example in the waterfront here near the silos, they're having a Christmas menu which is purely vegan, which is quite going out on a limb, but. Two of the members of the Eat Out team went there the other day to taste it, and they said it was fantastic, and they weren't vegan. And they said, if that's vegan, we're in. So I think another thing we're noticing, also part of the sustainability drive, is that restaurants it's normal now to get a paper straw or a straw made of something other than plastic. Even pasta, we've seen pasta straws, which is quite a good idea, really. And then also the doggy bags. Polystyrene trays, are on their way out. People are using brown paper bags or cardboard boxes. So that's a lovely movement that I think is just going to grow more.
Adelle, I have to tell you that when you mentioned pasta straws, my colleague Dino here raised a skeptical Greek eyebrow at me. Is that like a thing, do you think?
It is, absolutely. I've seen people doing it. I haven't tried it myself. Yeah. I don't know how it would taste. But Adelle's absolutely right on the sustainability side of things. And even at larger restaurants like ours, we've definitely shifted away from trying to use plastic and trying to use plastic straws and the packaging we use. So it's a really good movement.
Are you doing this because you feel you should, or is pressure coming from your patrons, do you think?
Well, I think it's probably a bit of both. You know, I'd love to say that it's because we know we should, but absolutely, the patrons do put pressure, and I can see a great deal of them actually ask why we're using plastic straws when we still were, and whatever the case may have been. So it's a good trend to see her change, though. I'm very happy about that personally.
Adelle Horler, let's get back to some of the trends, if we can. Again, in this fabulous book that you guys have put out, you tell us that bread on the table is still a thing, but how has it changed? I mean, are we consuming it differently? Are there different types of bread that we're seeing?
I think it's in many restaurants it's becoming more of a dish. It's becoming more of a course. It's not just a sad piece of brown bread and a pat of butter. People are putting more effort into it. We've seen some lovely ones with flower petals rolled into the dough, and that's just gorgeous. So it's a bit sad for those of us that really love carbs, but I think it's more of a French thing as well. The bread course is actually a course. It's not just something you eat on the side to fill up.
One of the other trends that I enjoyed from this book was a return to tablecloths. Explain that to me, Adelle.
Well, you know, the Eat Out team is a little divided about this. This was feedback from the judges. The judges of the Restaurant Awards, the annual awards, we've just had them, that announced the Restaurant of the Year and Chef of the Year in the top 30. And the judges who, apart from Macho Janse, remain anonymous, so they visit unannounced. And they're seeing that, again, the more upper tier restaurants are going back to tablecloths, which is lovely. You know, it's lovely going back to old-fashioned values and lovely, you know, there's nothing like a crisp white tablecloth. The other side of it is you've got to wash them. So if we're kind of moving into the sustainability area, you don't want to be doing too much washing. So that one's a mixed bag.
Yeah, it's very complicated. What's your view on tablecloths?
Yeah,
I mean, you've got to have a tablecloth. It's fine dining, you've got to have a tablecloth.
You know, so I think a tablecloth, when you think of a fine dining restaurant, absolutely a tablecloth is generally there. At our restaurants, particularly, tablecloths would just not work. The sheer volume of guests and patrons that we serve through the night, as they've mentioned, to wash those and keep them clean would be an absolute nightmare. So
Adelle in Cape Town, Dino, thank you very much indeed.
Thank you very much.
Sadly, we are out of time. Take your pasta with you because I've still got work to do. But great talking to you. And I learned something about tomahawk steaks today. I hadn't heard about that before. Awesome. Thanks a lot.
Thank you very much.